If I could somehow provide awesome content and awesome human interest stories that will improve mental health, which I think is the #1 leading problem to almost every problem that we have in this world right now, that's probably the third thing I'm trying to do, right? Like move people over to the center, normalize the conversation, and provide value that's actually going to make somebody a better human.
Welcome to the Mountain Tough Podcast, brought to you by Sig Sauer.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Mountain Tough Podcast. I am Dustin Diefenderfer, founder and CEO of Mountain Tough, and I'm so glad that you are here. It is our goal each and every week to bring you a life-changing, inspiring guest that helps you improve, helps you transform your life, that helps you add some tools to that mental fitness toolbox, because adversity is coming and we all need tools to overcome adversity again and again, and different tools help at different times. If you are a new listener or a loyal listener, it does mean the world to us and the Mountain Tough team to check out your rankings and reviews. So if you have a second and can leave us a ranking or review on the show, I love seeing those come through. Iron sharpens iron, and through the algorithm, the rankings and reviews do help these episodes get out to more people to transform more lives. The Mountain Tough team is rocking and rolling this summer, and we are just finishing up with a couple new things that we will bringing your way very soon. One, I am incredibly excited about in the Mountain Tough app. We have partnered up with a couple people working on a weight vest program. So it's going to be an intermediate and an elite level weight vest program. A lot of Mountain Tough customers know that one of our most popular programs of all time is the 30-30. We have 1.0 and 2.0. They are incredibly difficult body weight workouts that are 30 minutes or less. The new concept that we're working on now are the similar elite level workouts, but we're going to challenge you guys to add a vest. This is going to be a highly effective program for all of the military operators, the firefighters, the wildland firefighters, or just simply anyone who wants to take it up another level and they want excellent workouts that they can do anytime, anywhere. So stand by for that. We're really, really excited about this program. It's going to be a blast, and we can't wait to bring it to you guys in Mountain Tough Plus. So make sure you're checking out and seeing for updates on the weight vest program. Transitioning now to today's guest on the show today, we have John Radzwilla. John is the CEO and founder of Hook and Barrel magazine. Hook and Barrel is, John defines it today as the redneck version of GQ. It is a lifestyle magazine, but it is focused on hunting, fishing. He has a mental toughness section. He has a fitness section in every publication. And I've had the chance to get to know John over the last 6-7 months. John is a great guy, and he is a competitive athlete. So I've met him at the High Rocks competitions, at the High Rocks events. I had the chance to sit down with John at Tough Fest. He was here competing. We snuck up to the podcast studio to record this episode because I knew that John had a unique upbringing that led to a unique creation of a business, which is Hook and Barrel. It's not your ordinary publication, and he did have to create his own path. He had to create his own industry. He's doing it in a very, very different way. So stand by for my conversation with John Radzwilla.
You were spot on last night. Like that, I love issuing challenges to people too. Like this is the goal you need to hit.
Yeah,
and I do it all the time to my friends too, and they hate me for it because I am
goal person.
Dude, not only that, but I'm a nagger in that sense too. Like, hey, what are you doing? wait, is that getting you to your goal? Like, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And it drives them nuts. Drives them nuts. But
and you're competitive too. Have you always been super competitive?
Yeah. I think everything I do in my life, I don't know where it stemmed from. My mom's not competitive. My mom always says, like, I have no idea where your competitive nature came from. We could talk about that. I've kind of like really kind of I've been on this mental toughness journey for 2 or 3 years now. And I've really dove into, I spent a lot of time, I do still spend a lot of time trying to figure out why I do the things that I do. And a lot of it just has to do with my background and loss of a dad. And then like I went to a high school where I was bullied like relentlessly. And I never really knew, we could save this for the conversation, but like I never really knew like where this drive to always win was from, until I really kind of dove into some TED Talks and Patrick Bet-David's book, Choose Your Enemies Wisely.
Yeah.
And really kind of realized from the Tom Brady thing, where he always had to have an enemy.
Yeah.
And he had to prove them wrong. And I have like this chip on my shoulder from being just absolutely bullied as a kid.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, for no reason. There was no reason at all. I just didn't necessarily fit in. And I lost my dad when I was 7, and I grew up without a male father figure. And I had a stepfather who was a complete jerk. And these kids just like would pick on me. I just didn't fit in. As a matter of fact, I always wanted to hunt. But since I never fit in with those kids, a lot of those kids' dads hunted and they hunted.
Yeah.
Of course, I never got the invite because I was like that guy they picked on.
Yeah, that's tough.
And so I had this chip on my shoulder, and I just beat them at everything. Like if there was a hot girl in school, she was my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Period. I didn't stop. If there was a car to be had or a race to be done, I was getting that car. I was winning that race. If there, whatever it was, just so these kids would be like, you know, F you, blah, blah, blah.
You could beat them.
I'm like, yeah, well, hey, the proof's in the pudding. Numbers don't lie, man. And
Well,
so
a lot of that had for sure come with the loss of your dad. How did he pass?
heart attack.
Dang.
Yeah,
At a young age.
Yeah, I was 7. He was the mayor of our small town, and the town was going through this turmoil about like this big warehousing facility getting moved in. They were going to run like the 18-wheeler straight through Main Street.
Yeah.
And he was a heavy man, and that's probably maybe part of my fitness journey too. He was a heavy smoker, like 2 to 3 packs of Marlboro Reds a day. Didn't eat healthy. He didn't drink, but he was always stressed. And he ran a large electrical contracting company as well, so super stressed out all the time. And one day they just found him dead alongside the road in his truck.
Heart attack.
Yeah, got him. Just boom, massive heart attack.
How old was he?
51.
Dang.
Yeah. And so like that's why I am probably as fitness oriented as I am, because I never want to be that guy. But the loss of him, like, dude, like Natalie taught me how to drive a stick shift. I didn't have a dad that taught me any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Even the outdoors was an epic cluster for a while.
Man.
And that's how I got really good at outdoors, because the kids in school, I really didn't have too many friends. I had some good friends that were like outside of my school, but like there was a clique of kids in my school that if you weren't part of that clique, you were being picked on. And to be part of that clique, you had to be that clique. And that clique would pick on anybody that was outside of that clique. And it was almost like a caste system. You were not getting into that clique if you were not part of that clique.
Yeah.
And in part of that clique, they would just pick on me. So like anybody else that wanted to be part of the cool kids crowd, they picked on me. That was a really effed up part of my high school experience. But the reason they never got to me, they got to me internally, and I internalized a lot of that, but they never got to me because I always won.
It led to that crazy competitive drive because of that chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, and I still carry that to this day. Like even in races, like I'll find somebody that's wronged me. They didn't even have to wrong me. Like
You just make it up.
he just looked at me funny. I'm like, I'm gonna bury you. And then like I know the SEAL community doesn't necessarily like really like David Goggins. And there's always that military thing, but I actually really resonate a lot with some of the things he says, because it's kind of my mindset. And he talked about taking souls in his book, Never Quit.
Yeah.
And I will like literally find somebody and I'm like, that guy looked at me funny. I'm going to take his soul. I'm going to make him feel so bad that he's not putting out what I'm putting out. And like, I just get, it's like, I don't know if it's if it's a bad thing in my head or not, because they never really know. They never know.
They have no idea.
They have no idea, but I am pissed in my head. And that just drives my competitiveness.
On race day, that stuff can be quite helpful.
Yeah, it's rocket fuel for my soul, man.
Do you find that it is dangerous to use like anger as motivation?
You know, I wouldn't say it's anger, because I think one of the root things of anger is rooted in hate. And I don't hate these people. Like at the end, if they beat me, I'm straight up hugging them.
Stoked.
Congratulations. Like sportsmanship is a huge key pillar for me. And I will never be that guy that's like a sore loser. Matter of fact, like yesterday at Toughfest, I knew that Katie Knight and her team and Kyle, and I forget the other guy's name, the
Alex.
Team 511, I knew they were crushing it. And they were wearing weight vests.
Yeah.
But I saw Kyle, like on the last run, he was just like, he was in the hurt locker. So I ran out there and I ran with them, let them know that he was 50 meters behind, got on him. I'm like, come on, man, you got this. This is your last one. You'll get your break on the assault bikes. There's 3 people going through. You'll get a 30-second wind, and ran them in. And I knew that they were going to beat us. And I knew they were going to bump us out of first place. But I was so proud of what they had accomplished that I wanted to be a small part in their victory over us. So I'm never that kind of guy. But so it's not anger. I think it winds me tight. Like I'm getting kind of chills talking about it. It winds me tight. And I guess maybe it builds a kinetic energy somehow within my soul that when it comes on loose, I just go.
Yeah.
I just go. And it gives me that reason to go after that person that's my target in that particular race.
That's so helpful.
But then at the end, dude, I'll hug it out. I guess like a UFC fight, right?
Yeah.
Like you're
Same
beating
thing.
the heck out of each other, but at the end you hug it out.
Yeah.
So they have to get mad at each other in UFC. Like you just don't punch somebody in the face unless you're a complete psychopath.
You have to have those psychological tools, especially in a competitive race, any sort of event. I mean, it's in that Chad Wright documentary too, 1 Mile Out, where he is playing psychological games on his competitors all day long by design because he wants to win. But as soon as the event is over, he is very supportive of everyone else at that event. But for him to win, just like you're doing, it is helpful to have these tools in your toolbox. Like, I need to pass that guy. I'm gonna pass that guy. Any sort of trick on race day is super helpful.
Absolutely. And you've got to, and the other thing too, I guess it's a Goggins thing too, like I adopted from his book, is like having your toolkit too, and going back to your last win, like my last High Rocks podium, or my Spartan win, or whatever that is. Like when I'm in doubt, and like let's say I've beat my enemy, quote, at that point, I never know how far they are behind me. So the drive to keep going, but eventually you start getting in your own head, like I don't know if I could keep up this 6-minute pace. So then I go back. I'm like, oh no, my name is John Radzwilla. I was number 2 on that podium in Houston Men's Pro. New York City, I PR'd. I'm podiumed again. I won that Spartan, 4th out of like 3,500 in my overall and first in my age bracket. No, I am not giving up. I've already beat that guy. He's not going to catch me, and I know I'm in the hurt locker right now. But I start going back in my toolbox. I think Goggins calls it his cookie jar, actually, in the book.
The cookie jar, yeah.
Yeah, I go back into that space. I'm like, these are my accomplishments. But not only that, but like, I'll go even further. Like, I've built a great business. I have a great marriage. You know, I've done these things. I have great friends. I'll start going back in anytime I start doubting myself. And I think that's what bullying does. Like, it puts something in your head that you always doubt yourself. Like, were they right about me? Even though you know they're not. You're like, there's always that little, like, the devil's in your head. Yeah, they're right. Yeah, what they said about you, that's true. And that's where the self-talk starts.
Yeah.
And you got to go back, and maybe you'll call it ego. I don't know what it is. But in that moment, I channel my ego. Yeah, damn right, I won that race. No, that what you're telling me right now, devil, is a lie. That is a lie. Those kids were not right. That was 20 freaking years ago. I've put up these stats, and now I'm going to continue to crush that guy that didn't even wrong me, but I'm mad at him in this race.
Yeah.
It sounds crazy, but that's where my head's at the whole time.
And visualizing yourself at your best, I mean, is a powerful tactic the military uses all the time. I mean, harnessing the visualization of when you were at your best, which is like what you're doing in that moment when you're thinking about like the Houston podium is a powerful tool.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it could be a curse though. Like if you're dogging it and you're like, dude, a month ago I just did this. Why is my pace now this? Like, what is wrong with my body right now? Come on, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. It could also be a curse. But you just always have to fight to get out of your head. You know, your self-talk is the worst. And I think, who was the speaker yesterday? Slipping my head right now.
We had Michael and Barklow.
Yeah, Barklow.
Yeah.
Where he talked about taking off the headphones. That is the #1 hardest thing for me in high rocks because I train with my headphones. And when I race and I get in my own head, that DJ booth, I can't hear that in the middle of the rock zone.
Yeah.
Like all I hear is the squish flash of my shoes. That's it. And that sound is enough to drive me crazy when I'm really deep in it, right? And but what he said yesterday, that was a huge nugget I took away because I've been telling myself, take off the headphones at the gym because you need to train in how you're going to operate, right?
Yeah.
And you cannot race in headphones. Like maybe a marathon you can, but you can't race what we do like in high rocks or what we just did at Tough Fest with headphones and you'd lose them.
That's a big, big tip. I mean, he laid that out yesterday in his speech. And if you, especially the way he was talking about, like if you do a really, really hard workout in a cold garage gym with no music, that mindset that you're starting to build, that's the last thing anyone wants to do. I mean, so many of Mountain Tough workouts here in the lab, pumping music is a big part of it.
Oh, yeah.
And you cut that out, and it's a game changer, especially for like a hunter. They're going to be grinding in the backcountry in silence, in their own head, in their own thoughts. And so music's not going to be an option.
Yeah.
And if you never train that way, you are going to feel it. And getting through that process before you ever run into it in the real world in your garage that was a good big golden nugget for me too.
Yeah, when he walked off, I shook his hand. I'm like, hey, you had a lot of great stuff in there, but I picked up a few great things. He kind of looked at me like, why are you shaking my hand? He didn't know, like, that was the thing I've been telling myself that I've needed to do for the longest time, but I needed somebody else to tell me that. And when he said that, I'm like, all right, this is really gonna suck. Like, I love music, and when I'm in the thick of it too, and like, let's say like Cypress Hill or whoever put on like Jump Around comes on, like that first hit of that song or whatever comes on the mix I'm listening to.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden I stopped thinking about how bad my legs hurt. I'm like just jamming to that song that I jammed out to when I was a kid or whatever, and takes me back to a different place mentally, out of the spot that I am currently in mentally, which is the self-talk of like, can I keep up a 6-minute pace in this state that I'm in?
That was a big tip.
Yeah,
for sure.
man. I like shook his hand. I'm like, you don't even know what you just said to me. Like that may change my fitness. That one thing that had nothing to do with fitness, really, had everything to do with my potential outcome going forward.
It's funny too, because I've noticed that specific tip of doing some hard training without any music at all is prevalent with like some legends in my life. Like Alex Fickler, who was on that 5'11" team. He trains at the Mountain Tough Lab really early in the morning. He gets in here like at 4:45.
Wow.
And there's quite a few days I come in at 5 and he'll have the music on. But there's been numerous times I've come in and he's just training like balls to the wall in pure silence. And then Barrett Sims, who did the kind of the pump up talk yesterday before the workout, he trains in a barn gym in Tennessee, and he does a tremendous amount of just nasty, hard Mountain Tough workouts in silence because he's a big time mountain sheep hunter, and he's like, there's going to be no sound anywhere I'm going, and so he has to get used to it. So a lot of really mature athletes have figured out that that's a good hack to apply to their life.
It is. It really is.
Hey guys, I just wanted to take a second and talk to you about nutrition and supplementation. There are a plethora of options when it comes to supplements that can be kind of overwhelming, so I wanted to let you guys know what I do take. So in the mornings, I am taking the Mountain Ops greens and the collagen right when I wake up, and that has been a game changer. I don't eat a lot of vegetables throughout the day, so adding those greens in the morning is quick and efficient, and I can really feel the collagen. In addition, I do enhance my workouts. My Mountain Tough training sessions are quite difficult, and so I do like to take the Enduro. It gives you a cardio enhancement that you can actually feel. And then I also like a little caffeine with my workout, so I'm taking the Mountain Ops Ignite. Lastly, it's really important that you are getting enough protein and recovering after these difficult sessions. What I do know is even following a strict whole foods diet, I'm not getting nearly enough protein on most days unless I take a supplement. So I do take the Mountain Ops protein after my workout to make sure that I'm hitting about 1 gram per body weight for a functional athlete. So taking the Mountain Ops protein with some creatine after my workouts has been huge. Those are the products I am taking and that I recommend. The Mountain Ops team is giving Mountain Tough podcast show listeners an exclusive discount to their products. It is a great deal. So for a first-time purchase on mountainops.com, you do get 20% off. All you need to do is go to mountainops.com and then use the code MountainTough at checkout. That's MTNTOUGH, all caps, all one word. Apply that as your promo code at checkout, and you're going to get 20% off your first order.
You've been listening to the Mountain Tough podcast.
So after the loss of your father, were you and your mom really tight?
We were. And she remarried, I would say about a year after my dad passed. And things were pretty good with my stepfather for a little while. And, you know, it was funny. I have a young boy now. He's 4.5. And I'm reading a lot of parenting stuff to learn how to be a good dad, because I never really had kids around me. I don't have brothers or sisters. And they start forming their memories right about now. It's funny. And when I think back, I could barely remember my dad. And I think what I remember my dad is illustrations that I have animated in my head based off of photographs. I really don't remember too much from my dad at all, if anything, when he was really alive. I often now, at almost 40, wonder what I'm watching in my head as a memory, if that's not a memory of like a VHS tape that I may have seen when I was maybe 12 or 13. I don't know. And then I think maybe as a coping mechanism, I've forgotten a lot of my youth. Like, it's hard for me to think back to even high school, because that was a traumatic time too for me on many levels. And I think as I matured through like puberty and the testosterone started flowing, I started butting heads to my stepfather, and I'm not even sure where the catalyst was. He was kind of, I would say he was a jerk, but I can't really necessarily remember one particular thing. But it became almost like I don't even know how to describe it. Like, I lost my dad, so I was really like, here's a great example. Anything that's my father's to this day, I value so tremendously much. Like, they're the most valuable things. And my stepfather would like take tools that were my dad's, and I had no use for these tools. But you touched my dad's Allen wrench, so I would like break into the tool chest, and then he put a lock on it. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna knock that lock off. I have no use for that ball peen hammer. But I'm taking it. And I wrote my initials in huge Sharpie on every one of them, and those are mine. And they sat in a toolbox. I never used them unless I was building a treehouse. But don't you touch my dad's stuff. And I think maybe that was some of the contention. That was an immaturity on my part, but I was a young man. I was maybe, I was 7 when my dad passed, and by the time all this stuff, all the hormones started flowing, maybe it was like 12, 13 in there.
And you're territorial.
And that may have started the catalyst of him then butting heads with me. And then, as young men, as you get older, by 16, I was lifting heavy, because again, being bullied. My cousins, I remember distinctly being in my cousin's car, and he's like, dude, as soon as you turn 14, get in the gym and start lifting. And I don't know why 14 was the arbitrary date, but I did. And I've never not been in the gym. He goes, because nobody's going to pick on you if you're bigger than them or if you're stronger than them. So by the time I was like 14, 15, dude, and that was back in like, let's see, I graduated high school in 2003. So I don't know, like early 2000s, late 90s, I was taking creatine. I was taking like betaline,
Muscle milk,
androsterylene, or whatever. Not, I think that might be a testosterone, or that might actually be a actual steroid. But there was like some precursor to it, like all the
that
stuff,
GNC stuff,
all that stuff. Yeah, dude, I was GNC's best customer, right? I would go to school with a bag of supplements, so God knows what that did to my mentality.
Yeah,
you know, like who knows?
Yeah.
But mix that with the territorialism, and then my stepfather being a jerk, probably back to me. He was trying to be hard on me, even though he was the high school guidance counselor. So he's like, it was weird. It was really weird. He was another school, not my school. But anyway, dude, you mix all that testosterone flowing in a young man, and then you mix like the supplements and the gym. Like it got to one point one night. I guess something happened with my mom and my stepfather, and they got into a huge fight. And I found my mom like walking down the highway in the rain. I'm like, get in the car.
Yeah.
Picked her up, took her home. Knocked on that door, and she knew if she let me in that house, nothing good was going to come of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the very next day we moved out. But that was kind of like my journey with my stepfather. And I don't even know where it really started. And actually, I may have got off question, but like that's how it all ended. I never seen the guy since, but like it really, again, just kind of put that trajectory of even like when it comes to business, I'm territorial with it too. Like there have been people that have wronged me, like actually really wronged me in my business. And I use them as my catalyst to build my brand. And I find that a lot of the things I do in my fitness journey parlay over into my business journey as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because our childhood does shape so much of who we become and what we go after.
Right. Yeah.
And you know, so much of that is healthy too, because like you need some of that fuel to do what you're doing now, and it shaped the creativity of how you did it, and it shaped the unique way that you did it. Without that background, you would have never been able to do what you're doing now. I mean, you wouldn't do it the same way for sure.
No, and I think that childhood, again, like I have to thank my stepfather in a lot of ways. Like, let's talk about the outdoors. So to escape a lot of the BS that was happening around the house, at least in my own head. And I think for the most part it was justified. Again, like I don't really remember it so much. I think I've like somehow put it out of my head. I would head into the woods and I would like build a treehouse and pretty much like live the summers like in there. And I would come home and for like lunch and dinner, and then I would go back to the treehouse until dark, and then I had to be back in by street lights. And you know, I learned how to do like a lot of field craft in the woods. Like if I wanted a fire, I figured out how to make a fire. If I wanted to try like shoot a rabbit with a BB gun, I had to figure that out. If I wanted to catch crayfish, I remember once catching crayfish, I'm like, let's try to eat these things. How do I cook them on rocks? You know? And I learned a ton just being bored in the woods. As an only child, no brothers or sisters, not many kids lived around me. Like I said, I didn't have too many friends, but I always wanted to hunt, and those kids were out there in the woods. I'm like, well, if I don't have a gun, my mom's kind of like anti-hunting.
Yep.
I think there's a 38 special somewhere in the house. Don't know. I'm just going to figure this stuff out myself. And so I had my own little outdoorsman's journey. So I got really, really into it. And then one summer, my mom was like, hey, do you want to go to space camp? I'm like, all right, cool, let's go to space camp. So I went to space camp, and then I realized that space camp had a sister company called Aviation Challenge. And it was where it was like an Air Force military version of space camp.
Nice.
And I fell in love with that thing, and it was awesome. I only went to one, but it was enough to where like I took my outdoorsman fieldcraft I had learned by myself through trials and errors.
Yep.
And then I had like a camp that was like, hey, like if you go down in an airplane crash, you need to build a fire. I'm like, fire. Like, dude, how'd you do that so fast? I'm like, I kind of just hide in the woods to avoid like being bullied by both my stepfather and these jerks in school.
It's kind of a blessing.
Yeah, so it taught me so much about the outdoors. So the minute that I got into firearms because of my cousins eventually, and got my first gun and eventually got the first taste of a hunt, I had a lot of that stuff already prepared. Not saying I'm an expert, but I would say from an entire like 10 years of my life, basically hiding in a fort in the woods somewhere.
It's fieldcraft stuff.
Yeah, like I don't worry about that side of things. I'll figure that out.
Which is a big deal. I mean, we see a lot of like adult onset hunters, and Barclow and I talked about it a tremendous amount on the Mountain Tough podcast that he did. is a lot of adult onset hunters. They will pick up a rifle or a bow. They'll do a tremendous amount of training. They will buy all the right gear, but they haven't spent just 10, 20 years in the mountains just hanging out. So they don't have like the outdoorsman foundation, which you had the chance to get just because you were hiding out, which is perfect.
Through unfortunate circumstances, I had become an incredibly good outdoorsman. And then that camp just like taught me, refined like the mistakes I was making with adding just a little bit of that military experience that I guess was pushed through that camp. I didn't have any association with the military other than I'm sure like, I'm sure they use them as advisors.
Yeah.
But it was enough to like refine some of the things. Like I never knew what these particular fire structures were called or why they were efficient or how to necessarily use them, but I knew how they worked in my application.
Yeah.
And then when somebody's like, oh, this is why this works, I'm like, oh, now I've connected the dots between what works in my life and the theory behind why it works. The
reasons.
And then that really put it all together. And I got into like reading bushcraft books and like reading the military like those
things
guides.
Are awesome.
Yeah, I would start reading all that stuff. I'm like, and now all of a sudden I already had the skill, but then I understood the reason why, and kind of I almost retro engineered it, and then it really clicked. And so, yeah.
Well, let's fast forward to Hook and Barrel.
Yep.
Because that founding story is really interesting.
Yeah. Again, being stubborn and hard-headed. Yeah.
Yep. The hard-headed nature is helpful. And I remember talking to you about it at dinner, and the way that you got Hook and Barrel off the ground is really, really cool. And it is a unique, you're good at looking outside of the box and doing things different than anyone else is doing, which has led to a ton of your success. So you're not copying others and trying to be better. You're essentially creating a brand new path and creating your own path. And that is awesome.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm super proud of you for that, for doing something very unique at a very world-class level. But
thank you so much. That means a lot, that what you just said.
It's awesome. I mean, you're carving a unique niche in the industry, and you've done it really well. But let's let the listeners know, how you got this thing off the ground.
Yeah, for sure. We'll do this in a movie effect where like we start like present day and then kind of go backwards. But just a few months ago, I was flying to Iwa, which is a large outdoors hunting and shooting exposition in Germany.
Yep.
And I was listening to Richard Branson's masterclass as I was flying. I listened to a lot of masterclasses, a lot of podcasts, read a lot of books. And in his masterclass, he talked about a famous story of Ernest Hemingway being challenged to write a story in 6 words. And I was like, well, what's my story? And I kind of wrote that out. I'm like, what's Hook and Barrel's story? And what that story turned into is really our company's mantra. And our company's mantra is challenge everything, then do the unexpected. And I never had verbalized what we do until that moment. But that is our mantra. We literally look at what everybody else is doing and go, why are you doing that? Is this really the right way to be doing it? Or is this just the status quo? Or is this the 98%, let's say, like back to Michael Easter's speech yesterday, the escalator versus the stairs. Like, why it might be the easiest way to do. Is it the right way to be doing it? And what's the long-term effects of this? So going back to how Hook and Barrel started with that in mind, I was sitting at a bar. I don't drink anymore. Never had a problem with it. It just doesn't serve my needs. But sitting at a bar, I was frustrated I was running a PR firm at the time. My wife was working at the PR firm. She was crushing it, like on the sales side. And she was also still selling Mary Kay Cosmetics.
Nice.
Girl earned 9 cars in like 6 or 7 years, 3 of which were pink Cadillacs. So I drove a pink Cadillac for years with her.
That is awesome.
So many funny stories about that. But anyway, I was sitting there. I was like, I am really tired of chasing the media. Like I'm always chasing. I'm kissing butt and chasing. I want to become the media. And then I thought about like, what would I do? Like, where would I place clients if I was the media? And I'm like, well, I need a lifestyle and entertainment magazine. So what does that look like? Well, there's GQ, there's Men's Health, Maxim, all that variation. And then I looked to the outdoors. I'm like, do we have that? I'm like, all right, well, it's Garden and Gun. They're way more garden than they are gun. There's like recoil.
Yeah.
Very, very tactical, law enforcement, military. There's skill set. They're kind of close. Ballistic gets more guns. And there was, as I start going through it, I'm like, all right, let's move into the hunting side. There is, all the great hunting magazines are out there. Like, they're all fulfilling these niches, but there's no lifestyle and entertainment magazine for outdoorsmen. So I'm like, I remember sitting there, I'm like, what would a redneck GQ look like? And so I'm like, all right, I'm going to head over to Barnes & Noble's because it's across the street from the mall. And I went through all of their racks and I found all those magazines I just mentioned. But there was no real lifestyle magazine, like no lifestyle entertainment magazine covering travel, destination, food, drink, music, celebrities, athletes, anybody like total human interest. There wasn't one. And so like I grabbed a few of them, headed back to the bar, called the waitress over, and she was like doing her homework in the corner. I'm like, give me a piece of loose leaf. I drew out a logo and a quick business plan. I remember I still have it in my office. And I came home like, Natalie, this is what I want to do. I want to become the media, and I want to create this magazine called Hook and Barrel.
You already had the name.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. I drew out the ampersand with the hook and then the trigger guard on it with the trigger. And so hook for fishing, barrel for barrel of a gun, barrel of whiskey, barrel of wine, barrel of monkeys. I don't care.
Yep.
And she's like, what do you know about magazines? I'm like, I don't know a whole lot, but I could probably hire people to do this, and we'll figure this out. We'll hire some publishing people. I know a few people, and I reached out to a bunch of my network. And I reached out to one group particular. It's like a local newspaper, and I'm like, hey, this is what I want to do. What's your best advice? And the gentleman said, don't do it. And that's all I needed to hear. I'm like, you're telling the wrong person not to do something. Like, I am not that person. You tell me like, don't fly, somehow I'll grow feathers, right? Like, that's kind of how I am. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, all right, well, cool. Hung up. I'm like, I don't need to hear the naysaying because I don't need the negative in my head. And so I employ another group, and about a month later, 6-8 months later, the magazine finally launches, because I knew you couldn't start a magazine without distribution because you need ads, but ads aren't going to buy. No one's going to buy an ad if you don't have distribution. So I had to figure out the model. I'm like, first off, let's challenge everything. How does this model work? And like, well, you print them, you pay for the space on the shelves, you kind of play this game, you hope to sell like 18 to 22%, and then you buy back the rest of them. Well, that's really dumb. Why are you doing this?
That model's insane.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is a really dumb way. And like, what do you do with them when you get back? Like, oh, you just like shred them and you recycle them. There's a cost to that too.
The waste in that.
Yeah, like dumb. I'm like, I'm gonna give them away. And then I was thinking about like where you get free magazines. Like you find them like laying around your coffee shops. Like I just was up here in the Bozeman. There's some great, awesome ones that you could tell they spent a lot of money on this paper and it's just laying around. Mm-hmm. But how do I know an outdoorsman's picking that up? Like I need to leave them in the right places. And so I had a buddy that had a buddy, and this guy's like, hey, my uncle owns a bait shop in Missouri. If you want to get some placement in my uncle's bait shop. I'm like, okay. He's like, come to me with a business plan. I'm like, oh, business plan's a little aggressive for like Bubba's bait shop, but all right, whatever, we'll do this. And anyway, long story short, I go back to Matt. I'm like, here's my plan. He's like, I think he's gonna love it. Let me run up the flagpole. I'm like, what flagpole is this guy?
Missouri bait shop.
Yeah. What flagpole is this guy talking about? Anyway, he's like, hey, how would you like every store in Texas? I'm like, wait, you said Missouri. How are we in Texas? He's like, I don't talk about it very much because people are going to ask me for things, but my uncle is Johnny Morris. And I'm like, that's not a bait shop.
That's insane.
And I'm like, and again, it's total God thing, like break down in tears. I'm like, and I go home like, Natalie, we got the distribution, but we got to print a lot of these things. And the rule is it cannot ever be empty in that rack. Bass Pro Shops does not like it to be, it rack's empty, right?
Owner of Bass Pro. Yeah, he's the owner, correct?
He's the owner, yes. And Cabela's. And so we print like, I'm like, how many do we print? Like, I don't know, like 10,000. Let's run 10,000. We were out in 2 weeks. I'm like, oh crap. So I go to this outdoor conservation banquet, and that guy comes up to me, and he's like, hey, I told you, don't start this magazine. I don't appreciate, what do you say, the cross promotion? I'm like, what do you mean cross promotion? He's like, you know, and he's like stumbling through his words a little bit. And I'm like, do you mean competition? He's like, yeah, I don't like you talking to my advertisers. I'm like, again, wrong person to be talking to me about competition.
Yeah.
Also, that's called capitalism.
Yeah.
And I'm a freaking red, white, and blue-blooded American. Like, I thrive on capitalism. I remember he said something along the lines of like, if you're going to be a burr under my saddle, it'll be a burr under yours. And I'm like, I will be a freaking burr tree.
He did not want competition. That's crazy.
Yeah. And that was the enemy I needed.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what you just did.
Yeah.
And I made sure that, and again, it was not, I'm not angry. I'm not pissed. I wasn't anything, but it just fueled me. And like, I will have my magazine, not only in Texas, because you're in Texas, I will be everywhere that you're at. That's good. But I want to take this thing nationwide and screw you, buddy. Like, I'm just going to show you. And he has no bad intentions. I don't believe he did.
Yeah.
But it was enough for my head, my mindset.
Yeah. Think about it as like an athletic event. You needed that person.
I needed that person. And unbeknownst to him, maybe his like threat and his discouragement was the catalyst for me to become where just what I needed to do to make the magazine big.
Makes you drive even harder.
Yeah. And I'm still driving, and I'll just find somebody new as I move on. But so anyway, yeah. So we launched the magazine. Martin Truex Jr. was our first cover, Bass Pro car driver in NASCAR. And 2 weeks they were out. I'm like, oh crap. So like I go on this campaign of calling every manager. I'm like, I'm so sorry. This will never happen again. Natalie, all right, we sold like 3 ads. We really need to sell more ads. It's like, yeah, but I can't sell ads until we have proof. Like, we need some street cred. I'm like, all right, we're going to issue 2. Like, I think we may have like sold like 5 ads, issue number 2. We're still bleeding money. We're bleeding money like crazy. Same time, I'm butting heads with this other guy who's telling me how to run a magazine, but like he never really, like we'd go to him and say like, hey, we need to put together an RFP. He's like, what's that? Like, request for proposal. Well, I never had to deal with that. I'm only on the editorial side. I'm like, well, okay, but you posed yourself as a publisher. Like, you have to know how to run the whole business.
Yeah.
He only knew how to run the actual like editorial side. And then we would just like butt heads in a few other meetings, and eventually like it got to the point where I met somebody, and I said, hey, thank you so much. Actually, you know Talon Smith from L3 CrossFit. One of my fitness mentors. We did a photo shoot with Talon. I tried to do a fitness section like early on.
Every article.
Yeah, well, now we are.
Yeah.
Well, early on, I just toyed with the idea, and I was scraping for content too, because I mean, when you're nobody, you can't just call up PR people.
Yeah.
And we did a photo shoot, and I saw this girl actually at a networking event, the photographer, and I said, hey, thank you so much. I'd love to use you as a photographer again. And I don't know how it came about. I'm like, hey, how much was that? Like, I was like, because we were like bleeding money. Like, we were very sensitive to money. So much so, like, we were like behind on our mortgage payment, could barely like eat. Like, it was tough.
Dang.
It was tough. We had bled like into the 6 figures. Like, anything we had ever saved,
Gone.
And I was still working the PR side of my business too, just to like take the money from that to supply money to Hook and Barrel.
Keep the lights on.
Keep the lights on. And I think she said it was like $250 she charged me. I'm like, hey, Natalie. She said $250. And I thought that was like $500. And I don't know if these guys were like cooking the books. I could never like prove it. But there was a discrepancy in this one particular thing. And I'm like, I think something weird is going on. And we're butting heads so much. And then it's a long story, but we ended up, he was like, basically, we parted ways in a very, probably not professional way, yelling at each other. And I'm like, screw you, you're fired. He's like, well, I'm quitting. And I'm like, good, get out of here. I'm already going to lose my house over this shit. Like, we're out.
Dang.
And Nat goes, what are we going to do? We're mid-issue. Like, issue number 4. We have sunk every dime of our being into this particular magazine. And I was like, well, your neighbor, your dad's neighbor, owns a magazine called Tailgater Magazine, all about the lifestyle of tailgating. I'm like, maybe he knows some people. And he did. And we ended up hiring them, and we ended up like saving money, and it helped right the ship. And the magazine kind of flourished from there. And we got just a few more advertisers and a few more advertisers. And by issue number 5, we finally broke even.
Man.
I was able to like, after like a year of like, I don't know how we're going to make mortgage. Like we certainly like, we put off having kids. We put off so much. Like there was full planning involved in this.
Just fighting.
And the covers just kept getting better and better. And then, I don't know, man, we're relentless. Like, I once was stuck on the side of Mount Katahdin with Natalie back in the day in Maine. We had no business mountaineering at that time. And, and our pastor told us, he's like, I was saying, it's called endure with persistence. And we were just enduring with persistence. But like my endurance was I was 101.
Thin.
Yeah, I was 101 miles into that 100-mile marathon, ultra marathon, you know, like there was no more endurance at that point. But that break turned and turned and turned and turned. And then Bass Pro, we're like, hey, we'll take Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas. And we expanded some more. And then we're able to charge a little bit more. And then it just kind of blew up. And then the celebrities would start talking about it. Like, hey, I'm on the cover of Hook and Barrel. And boom, we start getting calls from Colorado. We start getting calls from Michigan. People like looking for this magazine.
Man.
And we're like, well, let's start a D2C model and direct to consumer. And so we did that. And then we took the magazine national last November. It was always national by subscription, but kind of very regional as far as
retail.
In retail. And then now I think we're in 45 states. 75,000 circ. We hope to by the end of this year or beginning of next year to have 100,000 circ. And that's a pure number too. Like I said, you hope to sell 18 to 22% of like, that's a good sell through.
Yeah.
Us, we're giving it away for free. We don't buy it back. And we know our numbers. So those numbers, we probably have 99.9. I don't want to say 100% because there's always a few left. But there's not more than maybe 500 nationwide left at the end of the run, because every one of these things is $1.50 to me. And since I own the company, and since I don't owe anybody any money, I don't have investors, I don't have nobody to answer to. The person I answer to is my 4.5-year-old. That's $1.50 out of his college fund.
Yeah,
that's $1.50 out of his lunch money.
Yeah,
and so we treat that very seriously. So if you actually extrapolate that out, if you actually want to play the newsstand game, take our numbers, multiply them by 5, because, you know, let's say you have 100,000, your sell through, say 20%, you're only moving 20,000. I'm moving 75 to 100,000 of these by the end of the year.
Yeah, you got 99% pass through.
Yeah, that pass through is great. And then our digital subscriptions, we run a ton of, we have partnerships like gunbroker.com. We just launched with Black Rifle Coffee. We're now in all of their corporate stores. So if you go into their corporate stores, half of them are owned corporately and half of them are owned privately. Hope to get in the private ones soon, but there's an ammo can there where you could pick it up on the fixing station, like get your 2% milk or soy milk or whatever you drink, and grab your Hook and Barrel. But our online subscription, we have partnerships there with them, like through their coffee club, again through gunbroker.com and a few other big retailers online. We have, I think, 230,000 digital subscribers right now. And so our digital, you know, footprint's more than twice the print. And it's, you know, I don't know, man. I don't know what I did right, but like God has like looked at me. Like God chooses like always like probably the best but worst person to like represent him. Like look at his disciples. They were all kind of screw ups, right? Like they did not deserve the jobs that they had, right? In his, by what most Christians look at, like the tax collector, the murderer, like the adulterer. All those people are probably should be in church, but they were actually the disciples. I look at that, I'm like, what did I do? Like I don't deserve the favor that I have gotten. Like I've not really done a whole lot of great things for other people in my life because I've always struggled with my own battles, and I'm probably not the person to come to for counseling. I've never been like yesterday, dude, the food drive that you guys did. Yeah. I stopped in the middle of it. I'm actually kind of getting a little emotional now. So, and actually like prayed, like, thank you for allowing me to be here because I need this moment in my life because I don't do a whole lot of stuff like that because I'm so busy doing what I'm trying to do. Yeah. And serving like something like that was really cool. And like, I remember Christian Schau from Uncharted Supply Company, like handed me a knife. I'm cutting open the goldfish bags. And he's like looking at me. And I don't even know if he was really weirdly looking at me. I remember him like kind of like, what's he doing? Like I had my eyes closed. And I was just like, just praying like
so
really
awesome.
Quick.
Yeah.
Like just thanks for giving me the time, ability, and resources to be here just to cut these boxes open. But like I said, I don't do a whole lot of that because I don't know. It sounds bad. It's not my nature. Maybe it's not like my hand right now because I'm just so busy growing this and raising a boy and trying to build a family. So I don't know why this business has been so blessed, other than that we're relentless. Our work ethic is through the roof. We don't stop. I'm so competitive, and our pastor also says, like, you do the natural, God will do the supernatural. And I can look at myself every morning and go, God, I've done everything I possibly can do in the natural. Like,
I've got supernatural moment.
I've left it all on the mat right now. And yeah, he steps in and does like amazingly cool things.
And from a service perspective, Hook and Barrel is doing some amazing things to serve the hunting and certainly the gun community, because it's a redneck GQ. It does a really powerful thing that is so unique to protect our passion for hunting, our legacy of hunting, firearms, Second Amendment, because when you see some of the individuals on the cover of Hook and Barrel, that not only catches the eye of outdoorsmen like myself, but it also catches the eye of mainstream general public. And so if they see a country music star on the cover of Hook and Barrel, and maybe he's holding a shotgun, maybe he's not, but then just the general public is like, oh, that's cool. I didn't know that guy was a bird hunter or that gal was a hunter. And I think it's doing a phenomenal job of not making hunters look so outcast sometimes or separate. It's saying like, hey, some of these amazing musicians, some of these amazing celebrities that we all know of, part of their passion is firearms or hunting. And it's doing it in a really classy way. It's not pushing it down anyone's throat, but it is letting the world know that, like, hey, like maybe your favorite country star grew up hunting. He does a ton of archery, elk hunting, and you can read about that here in Hook and Barrel. And so I think it is doing a phenomenal job of uniting a lot of Americans right now in a season where we need to be united more than ever, not divided.
Amen.
And hunters can get divided over the dumbest things, and and we need to unite. We have to be united, or Americans will lose hunting and firearms, just like Australia and the UK, because we have to stand on this united front, and Hook and Barrel is helping a ton with that. Mountain Tough is the fitness app trusted by the dedicated. Mountain Tough ethos is backed by, we've always wanted to be the best in the world at helping our customers become more mentally tough. So inside the Mountain Tough app, you're not only going to find all of our physical training programs, but you're going to find additional training as well so that you can stay sharp physically, mentally, spiritually, and nutritionally. The Mountain Tough app also allows you to train no matter where you are, anytime, anywhere. Additionally, the Mountain Tough app is going to have programs from beginners all the way up to elite athletes. And all of our programming is structured in a way that you can start with no gear at body weight, and you can go all the way up to programming that is full gear. So you can do that in a robust home gym or your local gym. There's no excuse for you not to start today. With Mountain Tough, you can conquer your goals with the ideal program for your lifestyle and schedule. Train with equipment or just your body weight on your phone, tablet, TV, or web browser. Most importantly, Mountain Tough will help you train your mindset so you are always ready for
for anything life throws your way. Mountain Tough is offering the Mountain Tough podcast listeners an incredible offer. 6 weeks free on the Mountain Tough app. All you need to do is use the code MTNPOD to redeem your 6 weeks of training. That'll be a 14-day free trial plus a whole additional 4 weeks of training. Just go to mountaintough.com and enter code MTNPOD for your 6 weeks free on the best-in-class physical and mental training app. Been listening to the Mountain Tough podcast.
And I appreciate you noticing that. And again, challenging everything and then doing something different, or doing the unexpected is, and I know you have the shirt, "Don't let the old man in," right? And I'm going to buy that shirt. But eventually one day we will all be old white dudes. And I think that our industry continues to talk to the old white dude. And I'm not just doing this for a diversity play like that. I don't need like a token black guy on my cover. I don't need I'm not doing this for any DEI initiative. Yeah. I'm doing this because I see a problem. As a community, we continue to talk to the same people. We continue to feature the same people. We're preaching to our own choir. And elections are won in the margins. And those that are elected preserve our hunt and shooting rights, right? So why do we continue to talk to the same people that we know we've got their vote? We need the independent vote. And those are won in the independent vote in a very slim 1 to 1.5% in the middle. So my goal is to take somebody from the middle and move them to our lifestyle. Huge win is taking somebody from the left and skipping the middle stage and move them right into the hunt, fish, shoot lifestyle.
Harder to do.
If I can move somebody from the left to the center, and what center is at least is what I call outdoor curious, outdoor curious, and or at least having an education and an understanding not to have an ignorant perception of outdoorsmen, because that's what the antis do. They paint a very good ignorant stereotype that we on the right side of the conversation oftentimes embolden by propping up that stereotype through our own behaviors and talking to the same old white dude, same shoot it in the face, same bloody gripping grin, so that those that are ignorant of our lifestyle are able to say, look, see what they're doing? They're exactly what we say they are. But they have no idea about the conservation. They have no idea about the camaraderie, the stewardship, the fellowship, the great things we do for the outdoors. Like, I'm getting chills talking about like how good hunters are for
conservation,
just for mankind. Like we're generally all good people, but yet we get stereotyped as gun nuts, as bloodthirsty murderers, as we're killing Bambi. And so, if I could at least move somebody from that point of view to an understanding, like, no, they want what we want. They basically want whole foods. They want free range, organic, grass-fed, fresh air. Yeah. All these things. They just get it. They just don't buy it at Whole Foods in Manhattan. They buy it at, open backcountry Montana, right? Yeah. That's what I'm trying to move that there. And if I can move that person from that stage to, I want to try this myself, like the Natalie Eva Marie thing, right? Yeah. PETA really highlighted factory farming. She didn't want, she hated it. Yeah. So then she starts going vegan and realizes I can't do that either. So how do I do this? I'm going to go hunt my own food. So she shoots her first elk. And in the article, she says, "Shout out to PETA, you made me a hunter." I'm like, during that interview, I was like running around, like just like pumping my fist in the background quietly because it was being recorded.
Can't beat that.
Yeah, I'm like, your plan has backfired. And so my plan is actually working. And so that's what we try to do. I try to bring the unexpected to the magazine. But also the other thing too is we need to normalize the conversation. Like I view my handgun, of course being responsible with it, as nothing more than a DeWalt drill. It is a tool to accomplish a task. Just as I would not use a drill to hammer in a nail, I wouldn't use a gun to do inappropriate things with it. Yeah. But it is there for that particular need in that moment. And nobody freaks out about tools, but they freak out about guns. And how do we normalize the conversation? And then also the third prong to my approach too is like, it might be my stewardship. Maybe this is the good thing I'm trying to do. Maybe it's subliminal, is the fitness side of the magazine. And then in the front, man, somebody that kind of changed my life is the Trident Mindset. It's a mental toughness app developed by like neuroscientists and Navy SEALs and, you know, corporate guys.
That's awesome.
This is a very valuable spot, page 10 in the front of a book.
Yeah.
I could sell this for a lot of money to an advertiser, but I donate this wisdom section. Like, this is the hard truth on stoicism in this particular issue. But there's always a mindset part to it. And just like Mountain Tough, we always have a fitness section. So we have a whole thing in here on glutes. Like, guys never want to talk about working their butts out.
Yeah.
That's a girl thing to do. But dude, your glutes are like the powerhouse for going up hills.
So you got mental, physical.
All
in there.
And so if I could somehow provide awesome content and awesome human interest stories that will improve mental health, which I think is the number one leading problem to almost every problem that we have in this world right now. That's probably the third thing I'm trying to do, right? Like, move people over to the center, normalize the conversation, and provide value that's actually going to make somebody a better human.
Man.
Those are the three things about this magazine.
That's incredible.
So that's maybe that's my filling goldfish thing for the kids. But thank you for having me to do that too. That was awesome yesterday, you guys. You guys, like, such an awesome event you put on yesterday.
Oh man, I'm so glad you made it. We've been wanting to get you to the lab for a while, and we talked about it a bunch 6 months ago, 8 months ago. Like,
down in Houston.
How are we going to get you to the lab? And then I love how it was kind of last minute, and I know you're a planner, but it was like, dude, I'm coming to Tough Fest. And then we talked about that, and you're like, I don't know, maybe. And then you're like, I'm in, I'm coming. I was like, heck yeah. That's like the perfect way to get you up here and to see the lab. And you got to walk right into Tough Fest. And
dude, this, and I am such a type A planner. And I was supposed to be at Worlds. I had so envisioned me winning that race that I already bought my tickets to France. And I bought the airline tickets before I even hit the starting line.
dang.
And I canceled that flight when I came in third. Don't even want to talk about that. That's only fuel for my fire next year. But yeah, it gave me the opportunity to come up here. And again, it's funny how God works. Like, I literally was like, God, I'm going there. And I bought that ticket, and he's like, no, you ain't. You're going to Tough Fest. You don't even know yet. You're going to Montana. I've never even been to Bozeman.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Remember I called you? I'm like, where am I staying? You're like, I don't know. You crashed the gym. You crashed my house. I don't know. And I'm such a planner. I'm like, I'm starting to freak out. I'm like, well, I guess I'll just bring my sleeping bag.
We just kind of roll with it.
Yeah. And just like even today, I was supposed to head home today. I'm having such a good time with total archery challenges going on right now.
Yep.
I canceled my flight home. I called Natalie. I'm like, I'm here. I want to go see it. It's the weekend. I'm canceling my flight. She's like, where are you staying? I'm like, I don't know. And literally right before I got into this podcast, I booked a small truck because I don't want to I don't want to take like a quarter ton. Like, that's kind of like a wussy kind of truck to archery.
Get a real truck.
But that's the only one that Hertz had. I'm like, I don't know where I'm sleeping tonight. I'm like, I'm in Montana with a really good Stone Glacier sleeping bag. I'm going to sleep in the bed of the truck. So I opted not for the economy car, but I got the bed of the truck. I'm going to sleep under the stars tonight. Like,
perfect.
Wherever I park, I'm adopting this Montana nomad thing.
It's good
so
for you.
Unlike me.
It's good for
you. I
you.
have not felt like this release in such a long time because I'm always so hardwired to be working.
Yeah.
And to literally have no plan. But you know what's really cool about that? I got to meet you. I got to meet Remy Warren yesterday. I got to meet, last night I crashed on your CMO's couch.
Yeah.
Right. And Michael Easter is staying in the room, like in one of the guest rooms. Like,
it's amazing.
I'm meeting all these people through letting go. And this has been just Tough Fest for me was not the workout. It was awesome. You guys had an awesome program. That was not what my experience was about. It was actually
the people. Yeah.
But it was letting go. It was letting go of my plan to let whatever God's plan was come in. Like, some of the people I've been trying to get a hold of somebody for a long time to offer them a place in Hook and Barrel. And I was sitting with a bunch of guys yesterday and they're like, oh yeah, like we're actually staying with him. Really? Like, I just needed a place to sit and eat this awesome tri-tip they're providing me. Like, I just had a half-hour conversation with you and like, no, dude, we'll relay this message.
It's so awesome.
And that's what it was. It was like release. I've picked up on this trip that you're very faith forward, and oftentimes being a control freak, it's very hard be faith forward because
Yeah.
it's your way.
You don't want to let go.
Right. But letting go of what my plan was, like flying home today or doing this or doing that, allowed God's plan to like open up that book. I'm like, all right, I'm reading. I'm like, I don't know what I'm reading right now, but I'm liking it. And yeah, that's what this trip was. It was like literally taking that moment to pray, thanking God for the opportunity to like serve yesterday, which is kind of unlike me to even have that opportunity to do. And then like letting go of like what my plans were. It's been really cool. I don't know. Maybe it's this Montana air. It's awesome though.
I love it. That's what we want every year. You heard me talk about it last night, but we want Tough Fest to be this magical day that changes lives. And
it was magical.
And it's the energy, it's the people you're around, and it can change the whole trajectory of someone's 10 or 15 years. And so much of that is the community around you. When you bring a like-minded community together in one spot, and the Mountain Tough community is like-minded because they're training from an app that makes them a very unique person, because most people can go into a great local gym and do a great workout. But if you choose that harder path of going into your basement and doing a really hard Mountain Tough workout, it's kind of self-selecting because of that. This amazing community that it is choosing the harder path organically, and then they find Mountain Tough and they're like, oh, perfect. I'm going to walk out into my barn and do Mountain Tough kettlebell diesel instead of driving 20 minutes into Planet Fitness. The people that are making that decision are a very, very amazing, hardcore, like-minded community. And then when you put them all in one building on one day,
yeah,
it's just off the charts.
Dude, the kinetic energy yesterday was so off the charts. A whole bunch of alphas that just want to crush a workout, that just got off climbing a mountain. They're like all amped up on that. And then like we're all going to compete. But it was cool, but the programming, not only did we not know who our teammates were, we had 5 minutes to figure this out, but what you guys did was genius with writing our team names in our hands, because it forced us to have to walk around.
You got to go find them.
Everybody. And so like, but everybody's like-minded, right? Like we're all on the same page, but yeah, we're all trying to compete against each other.
Yeah.
And and then at the end of it, you leave with like 300 or however many people were here yesterday, friends, or at least acquaintances, you know, and everybody kind of knows your name. It's like the cheers of fitness outdoors, and you guys created an amazing community.
Thanks, man.
And thanks for thanks for letting me crash on the floor here in the podcast studio for a day. You know, it's been just an amazing journey. Like I cannot thank you enough. This has been awesome.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
We are out of time, so we'll close her down, but proud of you. Love you.
Thanks, man.
Keep crushing it, man.
Dude, you guys too, man. Let me know how I can help you out.
Awesome. Thanks, John.
All right. Thank you.
What a great conversation with John. I really, really am proud of John for creating his own path. So remember, all of you guys out there that have this business idea, you have this entrepreneurship dream, this passion in your heart, remember, you can always look at things and understand that you can think outside of the box and create your own industry. You can build up your own industry. You do not have to get in that competitive red ocean. Always look for that blue ocean where you can do things completely differently than anyone else. John and the Hook and Barrel magazine are a great, great example of that. The Mountain Tough story is very similar. There was no one in 2016 that had mission-specific training for the backcountry hunter. I saw that as a blue ocean opportunity to do something that no one else was doing. John has a very similar story with Hook and Barrel. I love hearing stories like that. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for listening. We love seeing you guys dig into these episodes week after week. We're going to always try to bring you an inspiring guest that can transform your life in some way, even if it's a small way. Check us out on YouTube if you have not seen the Mountain Tough YouTube channel yet. at Mountain Tough Fitness Lab. Love you guys, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Mountain Tough Podcast. We'll see you next week.